100 episodes ago on the Fivecast.
I know that they teamed up on the 90s animated series at one point.
Of course they did. They also teamed up with the white-looking Blade.
Now where is Yuriko?
Juggernaut always struck me as a pretty useless character until that internet video sort of turned him into a viral hit, if you will. And,
no doubt. Without the video, he wouldn't be even in the top 10.
They're super skinny, but you can't see the bones sticking out. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I feel like they should be a little wider. I don't know.
I am Lady Deathstrike now, a living weapon of revenge.
I loved you once.
You played multiple Sega Genesis.
Yeah, nice man. Played by Val Kilmer.
What's happening?
I don't think I want to know.
From coast to coast, we've got two host to host. Welcome to another episode of the Fivecast Podcast. We're here to break down, examine, intricately prepared top 5 lists for your enjoyment from the Sentinel Tower and parts unknown. I'm your host, Tyler. And Second Floor Studios in Hollywood, it's Ben Pearson. Greetings, Ben.
Greetings, Tyler. What's going on, sir?
Have you been to the doctor recently?
No, I haven't.
Did you? Yeah, because if you can get a blood test or something, they're having a new test where they can check for the X mutagen. I didn't know if maybe you had some X mutant power.
I see what you're talking about here. Yeah, unlock my...
Yeah.
What?
Unlock your what?
My latent mutant abilities.
Yeah. Yeah. What would be your mutant power?
I mean, I think we've talked about this in some degree or another.
Top 5 superpowers, but that didn't necessarily mean mutant powers.
Mutant power. Okay, so that's a different categorization then.
Right.
Wow, you're really putting me on the spot here. I might have to come back and answer this.
Well, mine would be like diamond cutting abs. I think that would be my my mutant power. I was like,
would they physically turn into diamonds like Emma Frost does sometimes?
A little bit, but either way, they can literally cut diamonds.
Okay.
So like, if anybody like bumps into me, they're just shredded into ribbons, and they're like, "Oh my god!" Like, you shouldn't have touched me, dude.
That's nice.
Yeah, and it's
I
also
think maybe. I was gonna say maybe for mine it would be like a sort of like a force field that's always, or not always, but when I want it to be on, it's on, and it's like a gentle circle that informs me, like I'm or that surrounds me. I'm sort of in the middle of a sphere. So basically, it would just be when I walk around in public, everyone just automatically gets slightly shoved out of my way by this invisible circle that sort of
it's just more uncomfortable than physically jarring.
Yeah, it's a physical representation of your safe zone or whatever that people talk about.
Interesting.
And because I just hate crowds so much.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan.
So yeah.
Well, you know where the crowds are going to be this weekend, buddy.
Tell me.
At the Deadpool movie theater or something, right? Movies still hold... that's where people go on the weekends, right?
Yeah, I went to the Hail Caesar Theater last week, and man, they fixed that place up a little bit. It's not doing so well. But yes, the Deadpool movie theater, that's where America collectively is probably going to be this weekend.
Yeah, it was those Hail Caesar numbers, man. Not a lot of money made back, but Fivecast episode doing pretty good. So
awesome.
Yeah, the Hail Caesar name, I guess, really helped us out, but did not help out the investments on those that paid for the movie. But Deadpool, another chance for us to talk about something that's coming out this week. Ben, it's probably going to make billions of dollars.
I think somebody's going to be disappointed there, but okay, let's go with it.
I mean, I'm not personally invested in it, so who cares if I'm way off base?
Well, yeah, no, that's why I said somebody.
And so what makes me consider this week's list, maybe other X-Men should have their movies, because theoretically, Deadpool has an X mutagen of sorts, and an X gene, or whatever you want to call it, and an X chromosome. It's not a chromosome, it's a mutated gene that makes you a mutant. What other X-Men should have their own movies? Ben, do you have a list that looks something like that?
I do, yeah.
Awesome. Now, we have probably done 100 episodes since the last time we've done a X-Men based list. I think it was episode 16 where we did the top 5 X-Men.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So welcome back. The X-Men are alive and well. Let's go ahead and start with X-Men that should have their own movies. Ben, number 5.
All right, my number 5. I'm going to start out with a legitimate one, and my list is going to get more and more ridiculous as we go. Okay. So my legitimate choice is Beast. I feel like Beast should have a solo movie. Disagree. Okay. All right. Well, we'll get there. We'll battle it out. That's what this podcast is for. So I'm talking about Hank McCoy, Tyler.
Oh, I know.
The science-loving, blue-furred X-Man himself,
right?
Known for his witty sense of humor. I just feel like there's a good movie in there of like, everybody's sort of out doing their own adventures, whatnot. But Beast is back in the lab. You got some, CSI style analyzation going on, or so I assume. I've never seen an episode of any of those CSI shows or Law and Order or anything like that. But it could be doing lab analysis, doing all sorts of, beakers and test tubes flying left and right, Erlenmeyer flasks, maybe throw one of those in there.
Sure.
And then, but you've also got, maybe half the movie is that. And then he's also obviously got the ability to go out in the field and bust some skulls when needed. So it's a good balance. I feel like Beast he's got the wise angle, but he also has the physicality to just go out there and hold his own against some of the bigger mutants, or he could, lift police cars and knock people over and all that kind of stuff. So, I just feel like Beast is one of those guys that sort of gets short-changed in the movies. What's his name? Freaking
Frasier.
Kelsey Grammer played him in was that X-Men 3? That was just sort of like, well, all right.
He was a good Beast. It's just the movie wasn't good.
Right, yeah, I guess
wasn't
so.
Great. It was
I was just like, well, there's that. And then the new Beast, I feel like, is the weak link of the new X-Men movies. Nicholas Hoult playing Beast. It's just like, he's not the real Beast. He's too young to feel like the real Beast for me.
He's supposed to be like an old gym teacher.
Yeah. That's the version that I like.
Who turned into Beast.
The one from the animated series is sort of, and I think we talked about that on our last X-Men episode. That's what sort of informed my X-Men fandom, if you will.
Don't get me wrong. I like Beast. I just don't think he needs his own movie. I mean, what is he? Who's going to be? What's going to be the theme? Like, is he going to have to? Is it the film of him growing his blue hair?
No,
is it going to be like a high school, like a CW high school drama where the kids are making fun of him because he's blue?
No, man. This is Beast when he's in that gym teacher mode. He's an older guy at this point, and he, he's not necessarily. He's come to grips with who he is as a mutant. So he's not like struggling with, deciding how to handle it. He's already handled it. He's been handling it for years.
So the real struggle's over.
The real struggle with his identity is over, but he maybe helps a sidekick, a lab assistant, maybe, something like that. Maybe that could be like at Xavier's school. He could be, a reluctant lab assistant could be assigned to him.
Like a sexy lab assistant.
Sure, if you want to bring
it. Could be Anne Hathaway and Robert De Niro in The Beast.
Okay.
I got all this blue fur.
Can't really picture De Niro as Beast, but
you gotta put the blue fur on now.
That's really.
Why is that guy still working, Ben? Is there a reason?
I mean, I think there's a case that could be made that he should probably just retire and then still be considered, one of the greatest actors to ever live. But I feel like he might just be. Well, not really anymore.
No. I think we've realized that he was in a few movies where he was good, and now people go, "Oh, it's funny because he was Taxi Driver, and now we put him in this ridiculous scenario, and it's funny." But they've made so many of those ridiculous scenarios that it's like, because we don't know him as Taxi Driver anymore. We know him as Dirty Grandpa.
Right. And I mean, I think there's a whole
which I thought was fantastic.
I didn't see it. I heard there's a whole generation of or I know there's a whole generation of the kids that only know him from those movies and
Right.
like the Fockers and whatever.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
Intern.
I'm not gonna say like, oh, he was in a couple of good movies. Like he was a legendary force in the acting world for like 20, 30 years or something.
Godfather
before.
3. Was he in that one?
I actually don't know. I've never seen that one. I've seen the first two, but I skipped the third one.
Heat. Not the Burt
yes.
Reynolds project.
All right, so
Was he in Goodfellas? Or is that something else?
yeah, no, that was him. So that's my number 5, Tyler's Beast. Who's your number 5?
My number 5. Oh, we did agree De Niro should be Beast, right?
Sure, yeah.
So I'll close the tab on that.
Close that.
My number 5 is a buddy cop movie set place, I want to say, in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Okay.
It's Gambit and Rogue. They're teaming up together to basically fight crime as mutants.
Well, that could be pretty close to what's actually happening.
Oh, interesting.
Because you know that Gambit's supposed to be getting his own movie.
Oh, I didn't know that. Channing
Yeah,
Tatum?
Channing Tatum. Yep, that's
gonna suck.
supposedly happening. Even though I think a director. I don't know if that project currently has a director or not. It was supposed to come out like in 2016 or something, and that's clearly not happening. But
Maybe Channing will do the reverse De Niro, where he's in a bunch of shitty movies up front and then in fantastic movies towards the end of his career.
maybe, yeah.
You never know.
That'd be
But yeah, so they both really have kind of weird mutant powers. Like, obviously, Rogue can like sap your energy, and so if you have a mutant gene, she can sap your powers. And Gambit, whatever he touches, can make explode. So it's very difficult for them to like brutally assault a suspect, like interrogating them or using force, because otherwise the suspect will explode or die from lack of energy.
Right.
So they're very, very good cops because they don't violate any constitutional protections. They're always trying to use their brains to figure out crimes as opposed to force, because they would just completely decimate everything.
Yeah, they do get millimeters away from people's faces,
Yeah,
though.
yeah,
They'll come as close as possible
Those
without
are the
actually.
best scenes in this movie. And but nobody likes them, of course, because it's the Deep South, and they hate anyone who's different. And so Rogue and Gambit are constantly being on the heat. They're basically up against the corner with the rest of the town, even though they are trying to protect the town.
And then maybe they go from town to town in a
Yeah.
Trans Am or something.
Yeah, it takes
and-
place in the 70s, so it's like Smokey and the Bandit meets, that 48 Hours meets X-Men. So
Okay.
I think it's going to be pretty good.
That sounds like a $1 billion project.
Yeah. Well, I just watched an episode of the old X-Men cartoon, and they had one where this alien from another dimension kidnaps the X-Men to be in television shows. And I had already thought of this idea, and then one of the fake shows in this episode was, what was it, Miami Maelstrom or something like that, Miami Mayhem, and it was like a buddy cop between Cyclops and Storm, and they were on like a speedboat, and there was like this
That is
80s
awesome.
synth music, and I was like, oh damn it, I was so close to seeing this before I had the idea, but
That's
I had
pretty
the idea
great.
before the episode. So take that to the bank and cash that
Nice.
check. Ben, any thoughts on a title there? Maybe is like
Oh,
Gambling Rogue or
Ooh,
the Rogue duo.
The Rogue to El Dorado.
Puns.
Yes.
Ben, number 4.
My number 4 is Cable, Tyler.
All right, interesting.
Time traveling Nathan Summers.
Son of Scott.
And I think so. Son of Scott. I think in various. I'll be up front with you. I don't know that much about Cable. Again, I remember him mostly from the animated series,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think he's Scott's son. But is he also like some sort of clone of Scott at the same time? Like, there's some sort of weird,
Probably.
weird history there with that character, and I'm sure people can let us know. You can write and let us know the detailed
Yeah.
comic history of Cable at 5castpodcast@gmail.com.
We'd love to read that.
Yeah, seriously. So I just know that this guy time travels a lot. I know I used to have what's it called? Like Topps cards, like people had baseball cards.
Right.
I had X-Men cards, like I collected them as a kid, and Cable's was one of the coolest because he had this massive gun and this glint in his eye and scars all over his face, and I always envisioned him as like a like a badass sort of Clint Eastwood kind of guy. Obviously Eastwood's too old now to play him, but maybe like
Is he? If De Niro
well,
can get work.
I guess that's true. And maybe it depends on what year,
it's true.
how old Cable is supposed to be in whatever property we're talking about here. But maybe like old Cable could be Clint Eastwood, but maybe like young, maybe like middle-aged Cable, or maybe like slightly older than that. Maybe 60-year-old Cable could be like Liam Neeson or something.
Okay.
I don't know.
Digging
I'm
it.
just throwing that out there. So I think he interacts with Deadpool to some degree in the comics. And so, you could easily have a sort of mismatched movie with those two sort of going back and forth. It's sort of like a Batman versus Superman, maybe, where they fight over some sort of misunderstanding in the beginning and then team up to take down a greater threat. Very formulaic, but also kind of badass, because Cable is a pretty badass character.
Oh yeah, and Wonder Woman shoved in there for no reason.
Yeah, that makes. I'm trying to think of who the Wonder Woman equivalent would be in the X-Men universe.
Kim Kardashian. Doesn't she look like Kim Kardashian? Whenever I see the photos, I gotta go do a double take and be like, oh yeah, that's not Kim Kardashian.
I never thought about that, but I think Gal Gadot is like a little skinnier, like Kim
Is that her
Kardashian.
name? Gal Gadot.
Gal Gadot, yes.
Ooh, she sounds like she's from like the 1930s.
She's Israeli.
And featuring Gal Gadot.
What do you think about the idea of a Cable movie?
Oh, Cable's awesome, man. I don't want to talk about it now because he's on my list.
Oh, all right. Well, yeah.
So,
let's
thanks a
hold
lot, you
off.
son of a bitch. My number 4 is another time traveling X-Men. His name's Bishop.
Oh yeah, I considered putting Bishop on the list.
He comes from the future because there's that dystopian future that we might get to because the government is taken over and people hate mutants and anarchy wins the day. But Bishop goes back into the past, usually, at least on the television show, the 1990s. But I guess you could apply that to any period in comics. And he basically tries to fix the past to work out the future, even though he may not exist. But in the television show, he comes back multiple times and always goes back and is like, did we fix it? And the scientist is like, no. And he's like, oh, well, I went back and saved Beast. And the guy's like, who's Beast? like, oh, no. And then, like, I don't know, like a few episodes later, he'll show back up. But he and Gambit in the television show really don't like each other because I think he thought Gambit was an assassin when it turned out to be Mystique, obviously. Yep. She can shapeshift. Mystique should not have her own movie.
I agree. I mean, basically, these movies are sort of Mystique movies to a
like
degree.
Mystique, it's kind of a cheat because you can turn into anything you want. I guess humanoid. I guess you can't turn into like a side
chair.
table or something. Yeah. But man, she totally gets owned by Apocalypse in one of the photos they released this week. So
yeah, he's choking her. That's not.
She should probably turn into Apocalypse or something to battle him.
Yeah,
like make that throat bigger, girl. So yeah, I think Bishop's really cool, but he could also be like the tie that binds all of the other Marvel movies because he could just travel in between the movies because technically the future could all be one future. So he's like popping up in Spider-Man movies and he's popping up in X-Men movies and he's popping up in Avengers movies. He's like, I'm from the future. And, he just tries to fix something. Like this could be totally just like Days of Future Past, which could try to fix all of the continuity errors that have existed so that you finally have a concise movie franchise as opposed to, I don't know, rebooting every 2 years or what have you. Like he could totally fix the Spider-Man universes, right? He could go and just murder Garfield and whoever the new guy is, like murder both, like clunk their heads together. And they're both like just totally out. They've lost their powers for some reason. And he's like, Toby, you've got to join the Avengers in Avengers 3, the search for more money. And then Toby's back in Spider-Man mode, which he only has to make a brief cameo, Tobey Maguire, because you can just keep the Spider-Man mask on for the rest of the series and just never have a Peter Parker story ever again. Because seriously,
I'm curious,
that story's been told 1,000 times.
I'm curious, is that something you would actually want to see happen? Tobey Maguire to reprise his role as Spider-Man?
Would
or
I like
are
the
you just
chaos?
sort of joking?
Would I like the chaos that would ensue because of that decision? Yes. I want to see the internet just completely just fold
Shit
in
the
on
bed.
itself. Yeah, just like have no idea why these decisions are being made the way they are. And then I'm just like up there dancing with my puppet strings.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of just an experiment, a human reaction experiment, more than anything.
Okay.
Would I like to see the Spider-Man movies, the last two, kind of erased? Sure.
Okay.
Because I liked Spider-Man 1 and 2. And 3, although it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Was I liked who played Gwen Stacy, even
Yep.
though chronologically that didn't make any sense.
Right.
I also liked Topher Grace as a character, not the character he played, but as a character. I don't know.
Wait a second. So you're saying you like Topher Grace the actor, but you don't like him as Eddie Brock?
In Spider-Man. Yeah, he should have played someone else in Spider-Man as opposed to Eddie Brock. Like
what
Eddie
a
Brock,
weird thing to say.
like
Okay.
it makes, because I think he's funny, and I think he would have added to the because Tobey Maguire, he's always kind of mopey in those, and so Topher Grace would be like the comedic.
Okay.
Like the
Maybe
comedy
he should have
relief.
been Spider-Man.
That could have been, that would have been bizarre, because I think I would have enjoyed that as well. See, that's the kind of future that Bishop can bring us if he goes
Okay.
back and see, and like it clunks Toby and he clunks Tobey Maguire, and who played Mary Jane in the old ones?
Kirsten Dunst.
He clunks Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst's heads together in the first movie, and then just goes back to the future. And Topher Grace and
Bryce Dallas Howard
end up being like the main characters,
Wow.
and we get a whole new franchise.
Okay. Yeah, man. Bishop. That's a
Bishop.
disrupting force for
What
sure.
if I become Bishop? Maybe that,
God.
and I can go back in time and do all this. Okay, Ben, number 3.
All right, my number 3, I'm starting to get into ridiculous territory now.
Yes.
There's a character that I'd never heard of before that I found really fascinating, and this character's name is Forget-Me-Not, one word.
Of course.
So this is a guy, his real name is unknown. He is...
You don't know his name, or his name is unknown?
No, his name is unknown. I don't know it, and apparently no one else does.
Okay.
He goes by Forget-Me-Not. His nickname is Nobody and Nothing Man.
Okay.
And so the thing about this guy is he's been a member of the X-Men for over 6 years, but due to the nature of his powers, he went unnoticed by his peers and remained absent from official rosters. So the thing with his mutant abilities is
Intrigued.
he exists in a state of constant existential superposition. He is both real and unreal at the same time, and characters constantly forget him.
Okay.
Even
As if he's a dream?
sort of, yeah. Like
Like how you can forget dreams?
yeah, he basically, almost exactly like that. He will interact with someone, they can interact with him, and then as soon as they leave the conversation, they basically just forget that he exists.
Right.
So much so that, this is one of my favorite things, Professor X placed a psychic reminder in his own mind to force himself to remember Forget-Me-Not's existence once an hour.
Oh, wow.
It's just like, can you imagine setting an alarm on your phone for once an hour? Like, hey, this guy, he's
Yeah.
alive.
He's
yeah.
here right now, and he's
And
just
then-
like on the other side of the couch. You're like, "Ugh!"
And then every single time that alarm goes off, having that reaction of like, oh yeah, like once an hour every day forever, which is just crazy. So yeah, the whole thing with him is like he, really obviously struggled with his abilities because he
Obviously.
had trouble, grasping the idea that he is going to be written out of his own story, so to speak, and
Yeah.
just sort of like a floating around like a leaf on the wind or whatever.
Yeah.
But he ends up sacrificing himself, I think, in order to make a larger point and contribute something to society in a meaningful way,
Right.
where he won't necessarily be just forgotten like he is at the end of every conversation. So
Man, it sucks for Professor X, because now he's got to be reminded of a guy that he's got to be
Right.
reminded that a guy exists, and then remember. Do you think he put in another mental note
No, I
that
bet
he doesn't
probably
exist anymore?
He probably just deleted it. So he's just
Delete
like, well,
it. all future
I'm-
events.
I'm good with that. I'll just never remember this guy. That's all right. So
funny.
I don't know. I just thought the idea of that kind of character being in a movie, like I have no idea how you would do that, but
Well, it would obviously be a romantic comedy. And Forget Me Not is trying to find the love of his life and
50
realizes,
First Dates.
yeah, and realizes that he cannot go on more than one date because once the date has, once the date is concluded, they forget about him, and he can never close the deal. He can never get it on on the first date. So he's always like, oh, maybe that second date, but then they don't know who he is.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting considering the phone numbers. Like you can store a phone number, and so they have their phone numbers. They have Forget Me Not's phone numbers, and so the whole movie's him trying to reach these people who don't remember the phone number that they put in the day before.
Yeah, so there's a whole different
And he
thing,
dates online too, so it's even more ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because once
Because they
someone
look at
swipes
the-
right, he's
Yeah,
been
they
forgotten.
swipe and then instantly forget. So, with Beast, my choice for number 5, I was like, that's a character that has already come to grips with his identity. He's confident in who he is. So you wouldn't really have any of those sort of thematic things playing through this movie. But in the Forget Me Not movie, it would be all about that. It would be all about his struggle to matter, basically. So I just thought that would be an interesting thing and a character I'd never heard of before in the X-Men. So.
Yeah, and the major events in the X-Men movies could be happening around him.
Yeah.
But all we're doing is focusing in on him particularly.
Yeah, and like what kind of contributions has he made before that the world would be a different place without him, but nobody knows to credit him for those decisions. That's the kind of thing you could put in there too. Like he could be single-handedly responsible for saving Professor X's life on multiple occasions, and like that would have had a massive diversion of the timeline if he had died or something. So there are plenty of possibilities there.
Very interesting. My number 3, Ben.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
Is Magneto. He should have his own movie. It shouldn't just be First Class. It should be his own movie. No other X-Men. Just him and his family. The House of M, if you will. So you have Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch as his son, as his children. Mm-hmm. I think Scarlet Witch has children, and then there's Polaris, who I also think has magnetic powers. So there's a lot going on just in the Magneto family. So just forget about his relationship with Charles Xavier. That's done. We've seen that. Now I want to see Magneto happy and on a farm and with his family or in his castle or whatever, and probably hunting Nazis, Ben. That sounds like a good series of films, right?
Yeah, I'm down with that.
Like that could be like just him hunting these MFers down. Much like, isn't it a Marathon Man where they hunted down an ex-Nazi?
Yeah, I think
And
so.
He tries to torture with people's teeth.
Yeah.
Instead, it's Magneto that's on the other side torturing the Nazis using his magnetism.
So it's basically a whole movie of that scene from X-Men First Class where he's found in that bar with like the Argentinian Nazis.
Except more of that.
Yeah, I'm down with that
An
in a big
expansion
way.
an expansion of the Magneto mythos.
So it takes place during that time on the timeline, or
Yeah, it could take place 60s, 70s, 80s.
Okay.
I think some of the I think there are very few Nazis left, Ben, and most of them are in their 90s.
yeah,
And so unless Magneto feels the need to go and beat up on a couple of centurions or whatever they're called, 100-year-old people.
Centurions.
Centurions, yeah.
I don't know if that's real.
Well, maybe he goes back to ancient Rome. Who knows?
Yeah,
Isn't that where centurions come from?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah. Well, no, like this, like a Marathon Man, kind of like a gritty 70s movie, except superpowers. Can you just imagine like 3 Days of the Concorde or Marathon Man or
Condor.
what was the other one? The French Connection. Like that kind of grittiness, but with Magneto. Of course, Ian McKellen as Magneto. Who else? That's like saying, I don't know, Andy Samberg is Gandalf. Like, who else? Who else is going to play Gandalf?
Yeah.
In my mind, who else is going to play Magneto? Even Guggenheim or whatever his name is.
Michael Fassbender?
Fassbender, yeah.
Guggenheim.
I don't know. He puts the helmet on, and I'm like, okay, I see it. But then he takes it off, and I'm like, I don't see it anymore. So let's leave that helmet on. You got to have some gray hair, man. You got to have.
Okay.
You got to be strained. You have to be suffering because of your upbringing, your history. Goes great. So Magneto should have his own movie, Ben.
Okay, I think there was they were going to do that. You remember they were going to have X-Men Origins Magneto after X-Men Origins Wolverine, but that sort of turned into First Class because it became so much more about the relationship between Charles and Xavier. But yeah, you're saying screw that. We've seen that.
The origins.
Let's get some Nazi killing going.
Right. Hunt down those now, and then the family. I want to see more about the Magneto family.
Okay,
so they're around too.
Cool.
Ben, number 2.
My number 2 is Vange Whedon. I've never heard of this character either, but apparently she is the X-Men's lawyer.
Okay.
Which I thought was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So she could just be like sort of wandering around the Professor X's school for gifted youngsters.
Right.
And just getting kids out of trouble when they use their X powers irresponsibly or whatever. She could spend a lot of time in juvenile court.
Sure, it could be accidental too.
Yeah, there could be some accidents. But I think
Baby Juggernaut.
Baby Juggernaut. Wow. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of potential there. The cool thing about her is she's the lawyer, but she also is a mutant. Her ability is, let me see if I can read the exact passage that I read when I first
cases at incredible speeds.
No, it's way more ridiculous than that. So she has the ability to transform, to metamorphize into one thing and one thing only, and it's triggered by the presence of blood, and she has no control over it. Once blood comes in contact with her, or maybe if she even sees it, that part is unclear. She transforms into an enormous winged red dragon.
Wow.
Which seems like a crazy sight. I think at one point,
I'd love to be on the jury where that happened.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Bishop, your boy Bishop, ended up sort of talking her down from her dragon form at one point because she was accidentally transformed. I don't know if it was in a courtroom or what.
I hope
that
it was
pretty amazing.
Mid-argument.
Yeah, so
Your Honor,
I'd like to introduce Exhibit A blood spatter.
You will find this person not guilty.
Whatever you say.
Yeah, she apparently was out of control, and Bishop ended up sort of calming her down, along with a character named Sage, who I'm not familiar with, but they ended up getting her
in time
to human. Getting her to back to her human form. So, and she goes to LA to help out in some legal scenarios with the X-Men.
Yeah.
Sure. She is. I mean, it just seems like
ex-lawyer.
Yeah, the ex-lawyer. That's like a pretty cool concept. So, and there's a lot of potential for just bringing in, ground level X-Men characters, and also some of the big ones. If you imagine them sort of strolling through the courtroom, having to testify in big cases, maybe that would be pretty amusing too. Your Honor, I call whatever somebody to the stand.
Baby Juggernaut.
So
obviously, I have to go if I'm going to be in the Marvel universe, and I need legal assistance. I'm obviously going to go to She-Hulk because she is.
Oh, is she a lawyer
smoking.
too?
I think so. Yeah,
that's cool.
She wears like a business suit, but then she's got like bright green legs. She wears like a short skirt. It's like, oh nice. Wow, how's the jury supposed to pay attention if you've got these bright green legs that are just super muscular?
Maybe that's part of the distraction technique.
Distraction technique. Interesting. Now my number 2, Ben.
Yes.
And speaking of mutants that can't control their powers sometimes, I'm going to say Marvel Girl, Phoenix, or Jean Grey should have her own movie. I feel like the Phoenix Saga, or the Dark Phoenix Saga, that we saw between X-Men 2 and 3 just did not really do it justice. I mean, the end scene was, kind of cool, but...
Where Wolverine stabs her.
Yeah. She's like, "Kill me, Wolverine," even though I'm not really Jean Grey anymore.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, whatever. Gah. And then every X-Men died anyway. So
Yeah.
thanks, Brett Ratner. But yeah, I think there's a larger story. I think we need to maybe go back into. Maybe they're probably going to do it in the next decade or so with Sansa. Isn't she playing Jean Grey in the new movie?
She is, yes.
So maybe like 2 movies in, Sansa will be like a beloved character, and then they can be like, oh, okay, well, we're going to kill that character and make her a possessed mutant with like a cosmic being from outer space. Like,
yeah, and I think they should do like a beat for beat remake of how they did it in the animated series too. Like, spread that out, because I think they go to space, they go to all sorts of like different worlds. There's like, it's very galactic and sort of extraterrestrial.
I think Cyclops' dad's involved. He's like a space pirate.
That's pretty sweet. Yeah, I remember that.
But yeah, I think they eventually got rid of Jean Grey because she couldn't be alive, and because the Dark Phoenix would just take over.
Yeah.
And they've tried to bring her back multiple times, but it's mostly just a scam. It's mostly like, hey, Jean Grey's back, and then she does some destruction, and then they have to convince her to die again.
Mm-hmm.
It's very very weak. But yeah, when they originally killed her, man, it was huge news. Which leads me to another idea for the 5cast. Top 5 comic book characters that stay dead. Because we always see comic book characters die and then come back to life.
Yeah.
But what about those comic book characters that died and are still dead?
Yeah, the ones that actually that reject the resurrection.
Yeah. that the world does not need anymore. Because in my mind, when Superman died, we got 4 Superman in return, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like pretty happy with that. I was like, okay, great. These guys are way cooler than Superman.
That's a good trade.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
You got Steel. You got the Eradicator, which is like the Clint Eastwood Superman. You got Cyborg Superman, who clearly is evil, and Superboy, who wears a leather jacket because it's the 90s. I don't know why we needed Superman to come back, but he did.
Yeah.
And so yeah. Superhero characters or comic book characters that stay dead, but one of those would probably be Jean Grey because she technically hasn't come back yet. She's still always dead. Okay. I want to say, unless Brian Michael Bendis, whatever his name is, wrote something into the merging of the Marvel universes. I don't know what's happened in the Marvel Comics world. So write us in 5castpodcast@gmail.com, Mr. Bendis, and enlighten us about Jean Grey's fate.
Yes.
Also work on her own movie. Do that too, because they're always going to Bendis now. He's like
he's the consultant.
He's like the Jeff Johns of the Marvel side.
Yeah,
where sometimes he's got some good ideas.
Okay,
Jeff
all right,
Johns.
You ready?
Top
you
5
ready
Jeff
for
Johns failures? Yeah, number 1, Ben. Let's do it.
All right, my number
by the
1.
way, mine's Cable.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah, let's talk about yours then.
No. You already kind of said everything. I think I talked about Cable in episode 16. He's badass. He's from the future. He's got a metal arm. Yeah. He likes nothing but destruction. He's got like kind of a gold, like a super powered eye, I think, at some point. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He's got that white hair. He's jacked, but he's also old.
Yeah.
He's like a John Wayne, but also like a Clint Eastwood, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe kind of like
Eastwood.
Yeah, like Frank Miller's Batman, but you know how he's kind of jacked, but also old and like super strong still. But but transfer that human body to Cable, and I think you got a few awesome movies on your hands.
Yep.
Also, ones that really don't matter, because if Cable's time travel movies, it doesn't matter what happens in each individual film. You can just like hop, skip, and jump to different futures, and just ride the wave, just enjoy the movie.
Yeah, just ask our future selves with the Stargate Ferrari. There's all sorts of stuff going on there.
All this talk about beings coming back to the past to solve a possible timeline. That sounds very familiar. I'm sure it'll pass.
All right, so my number 1 is a character called Gold Balls, Tyler. Gold Balls. Do you know this guy?
Talking about me from high school?
No, I'm not. Have you heard of this character?
No, I haven't.
His name is Fabio Medina. He is a mutant who his powers first manifested themselves when he was the victim of an attempted robbery on the streets of San Diego.
Yeah, I bet.
As it as the powers often do. They
Got a
manifest
huge
themselves
erection.
in that specific way. So get this, his powers and abilities. Fabio's superpower is the ability to project solid gold balls of different sizes from any part of his body by
Sure.
shouting "gold balls."
Sure.
The balls are made of an unknown solid substance and are able to bounce,
Semen.
emitting a poink sound when they hit something.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at a comic
Sounds all too
panel,
familiar.
a splash page where the
A
word
splash
poink,
page, Ben.
where the word poink is visible 7 times.
What a guy.
So
I'm sure the women love him.
these balls are also incredibly durable and fly at high speeds when shot. Fabio can summon an infinite number of them to attack enemies. If he concentrates, he can project them in a straight line.
Move your head, girl. I have to concentrate.
Oh, God. Or direct them to a specific area. And when Fabio is calm, he can dismiss the gold balls, causing them to vanish rather than be reabsorbed into his body as they normally do. So
Now, is there a pill that can kind of kickstart this process? Because I know as you get older, like, it's harder to summon your gold balls.
yeah, right.
And, I mean, if you're not relaxed,
I think I've
you
seen
can't
some
control the
commercials,
direction of the poink.
commercials about the gold balls. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
They just rise out of those bathtubs from the Cialis
Yeah.
commercials. You never know what's going to happen, and just 2 gold balls show up.
but I mean, like, sexual entendre aside,
sure.
this guy shooting gold balls out of any what is it? Any part of his body
Orifice.
by shouting the word "gold balls." That's
Mm-hmm.
just that sounds like a Bob and Phil character to
Yeah.
me, does it not? That sounds. Oh God!
Hey,
Hello.
Hey, Phil.
Hey, Bob, Brooklyn Bob.
It's
Hey,
Bob.
what's
It's Brooklyn
going on?
Bob. You're Staten Island Phil. Obviously, we have nicknames.
Like how we have to reestablish them,
Yeah.
even though we're the only ones in the room.
Well,
But that's
you
all right.
got a few people who don't know who we are. Weekly listeners.
Oh, we're recording here? No. Okay,
Oh,
all
yeah,
right.
I mean, I record all our conversations for posterity. You never know when we're going to come up with, whoa! I just
What?
fell on my ass, Phil.
What happened
What do you
there?
got lying here on the ground? You got a couple of balls, Ryan, just rolling around on the floor, nilly-willy.
Yeah, there's some marbles over there. I don't know.
Yeah,
So
why'd you
just gotta-
spray paint them gold, buddy?
I really
seems
don't
odd.
know. I was in a massive state of depression. My wife has just left me, as you know. I'm
Well, yeah, you're staying
spending
in my
the-
basement, buddy.
Right.
Got a couple of good movies we can watch tonight. Actually, just one, and we're going to watch
Batman.
it over and over again.
And forever.
Batman
Yes.
Forever.
But yeah, I don't know. Gold balls. I just figured. Yeah, I got the
Hold
scan.
on. What'd you say?
Gold balls. That's
Gold balls. That is a superhero if I've ever heard one.
no.
And
I
this
mean,
should
come
appear
on.
in the esteemed comic book series X-Men. I don't think it has any other place but in the X-Men comic.
I don't know. About
Fans
that,
have been pilfering for a new character, and I think Gold Balls is the way to go.
Bob. I don't know. I
We live in a
understand.
decade of excess, and everything's got to be gold, and everything's got to be balls.
I understand that we're lazy and everything,
Yeah.
but I just don't understand how a character named Gold Balls is going to work.
Well,
You
how
gotta talk
about I
this-
tell you that he can produce these balls from any part of his body?
How does that make any sense? It
don't know.
doesn't matter.
Does
I
it win you
love
over?
it. Let's do it. Yep, I'm totally won over. Yep, I'm in.
All right, now pick these up. So yeah, Gold Balls. That's definitely a lazy, not lazy. It's just a very simple premise.
Why? I'm just so baffled. Like, I need to read like a full-on run of Gold Balls comics to understand like what the mentality is
I
behind
like
this
that
guy.
you think there's a whole line of Gold Balls comics.
No, that was
That's
yeah,
bizarre. No, I mean,
facetious, but
if you
and
think
also
of-
the idea of like summoning an infinite number of them to the point where you can project them in a solid straight line. That's basically just like forming a gold ball, a gold bar or something that's
yeah.
a mile long, or insert length here, that you could just swing around he doesn't have super strength, so I guess
Right.
I guess the further away it gets, the more difficult it gets to control. It's like holding holding a weight over a long period of time or something. Like if you swing it, it's going to bump into a building 2 miles down the street, so you can't really knock it over or anything.
Right.
You're just like, well, I guess I better retract this.
Well, maybe all of his shapes have to be balls. Like maybe he can't create any alternative shapes. Just like all the planets are balls. Like just
I guess that's true.
Maybe he creates mini gravitational centers that pull some kind of gold substance that maybe leaks from his pores, I guess.
Yeah, maybe. There's so many questions, but I figure a movie about gold balls.
Does he eventually run out of gold? Like, is he like Rumpelstiltskin?
It's an infinite supply.
So he could create a celestial body to throw the Earth out of its gravitational orbit.
Yes.
And
I
just
think he could.
like freeze the planet.
Yep, I think that's true.
Also
I think he could
testicles.
blot out the sun with a giant gold ball if he wanted to. So really, he seems more like a potential villain than a hero.
So the X-Men better treat this guy nice.
Yeah.
And go to the other side. Or go to the Brotherhood.
Yeah, as I'm sure you can expect, he probably did not last very long as a real X-Men member.
Can you go through his character history in less than 15 seconds?
It looks like his first he's a Brian Michael Bendis character. How about that? First appearance was in 2012 in Uncanny X-Men.
Maybe Bendis just looked in the mirror one day and was like, hey, somebody should create this as a weapon. My bald head.
So yeah, that's all I got. Fabio Medina, aka Gold Balls.
That's a great way to end the episode, Ben. Thank you very much.
Sure thing.
Do you have your own favorite Gold Balls moments? You can, of course, email them to us, fivecastpodcast@gmail.com.
Talking to you, Bendis.
That's the end of the episode. We've crunched the numbers. If you're interested in more Fivecast discussion, you connect with us on Twitter, connect with us on geektyrant.com, SoundCloud, iTunes. Just type in Fivecast. Leave a review if you can. We're still that open challenge. If we get 10 new reviews, we will review Ginger Dead Man 3, The Saturday Night Cleaver. I think I forgot to mention that last episode in case anyone's been keeping tabs on that. But I don't think we have any. I don't think we have at least 10 new ones. I think we still have just the one. Mm-hmm. But that helps our visibility. That helps other people hopefully discover the show and enjoy it as much as you do, I hope. Already mentioned the email address. We're not on Tumblr anymore, so if you still visit Tumblr, you will be redirected to SoundCloud. Fuck Reddit. I think I mentioned that last episode as well.
Yeah, you did.
Ben, where can the listeners find you online?
Twitter.com/Ben Pears.
And with that, we've come to the end of the show officially. Take 5, people. We'll see you next week. We lost so many listeners, Ben. Bye-bye.
Take 5.